you guys think as you're trying to like get ideas for a blues? What are some approaches that you guys take for solo wise?
Prayer.
Okay, it's one method.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of pentatonic, minor pentatonic, blues scale, and I'm really trying to get more arpeggios.
Yeah, major blues still kind of puzzles me a little bit because like physically you learn that box that's really minor, and your roots there, and then maybe I'll move it around. Okay, we're on the 4 or something like. And then now we're back, but
it's trickier than it seems. Like, you know, minor blues a little bit easier just to kind of stay on one scale, but I think the dominant bluesers, like everything is in there. Everything is kind of fair game. But the key is thinking of ways to like add to that. You know, how you approach adding to ideas that you can insert into it. One of them is simply just creating like a system. And that's what like the triplet arpeggios is. It's a system built off of a rhythmic figure that you start on every scale degree. So it's not one lick, right? One lick is cool, but then you have to blow that lick out to be able to actually incorporate it into your vocabulary. And there are ways to do that. But one of the best ways to take one idea and then expand it out so it becomes multi-use is to create what's called like a system. Like a method of how you take one idea, if it's an arpeggio, and expand it out to, you know, more ideas. So it keeps the idea simple, but you can expand it out. Because this is why I just want to share ideas with you, because that's what it's all about in this kind of music. You have to be creative and you have to have ideas, but they have to be like structured, because if they're too ambiguous, it's hard to actually put stuff together that actually gets into your playing. That's the goal, right? Is you have to take the idea and convert it from, okay, I'm learning this vocabulary, this idea, and then now it's in my playing like anything else that I play. I don't think about it anymore. It's just there. The idea is we have like 3 rhythmic figures that I've got here. We'll play through the figures and then we'll apply them to a B-flat-7 arpeggio. And what these will do is kind of get the sound of B-flat-7 brought out in your playing, get some rhythmic stuff happening, some triplet stuff, and just kind of give you a good sense of like playing over the B-flat-7 chord, like really addressing the chord tones as another option aside from, you know, kind of playing, you know, blues scale stuff over top of it and that kind of thing. So I'm going to jump into number 3 because this is kind of my favorite figure, rhythmic figure here. And what we'll do is we'll just play this on the B-flat to start, and then I'll show you guys how you can kind of work this into you know, the arpeggios and stuff of that nature. The rhythm is we're coming in on the and of 1, and the figure turns into and 2 into 3, and 2 into 3. Just 5 attacks. Da 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 da, and 2 into 3. So I'll put the click on about 100 beats per minute, and on 2 and 4, so you get the swing feel going. So we'll play this rhythm about 8 times just to get the rhythm in sync, and then we'll start moving it in conjunction with the chord tones or the arpeggio. So the figure sounds like this. We go 1 and 2 and a 3, 4, 1 and 2 and a 3, 4, 1, and so you guys can play it along. And 2 and a 3, 4, 1 and 2 and a 3, 4, and 4, 1, and go 4, 2, and 1, and cool. Okay, so that's the rhythm of it. All right, so if we start moving it in conjunction with a B-flat-7 arpeggio, the idea is to take that figure and run it off of every chord tone. In this case, off of the root. We'll start with that. We'll end up running it off of the 3rd, which is the D. We'll run it off of the 5th, which is the F. And then we'll run it off of the A-flat, which is the flat-7. And then we'll end up running it back off of the root, up an octave. But one of the ideas behind this is that it gives us the ability to start an idea on any chord tone. So if you guys are looking at this here, fingering is kind of optional. Like you could do finger 2, 1, 4, 2, 4. You can kind of jump over and utilize 1st and 3rd finger. I tend to do that utilizing first and third finger. There's different ways you can do it. But what we'll do is we'll play each phrase about 8 times to start. And again, with that rhythm, it turns into 1 and 2 and a 3, 4, 1. 4, 1. And 2 and a 3, 4, 1. Yeah, and 1. And 2 and a 3, 4, 1. And 1. Go 4 more, and 1. And 1. Yeah. Cool. So let's run it off of the third now. So we'll start it off with the D. D up to the D. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And 1. Go 4 more, 1. And yeah. Cool. Let's go off of the fifth next, so that'll be off of the F. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Go 4 more, 1. Yeah. Okay, let's go off of the flat 7 next. This will be off of the A flat here. Since it's a little bit higher in range, maybe Jeff, you want to just walk?
Sure.
So just walk over B flat 7 and we'll play it off of the A flat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And 1. And 1. Go 2 more and cool. Let's go off of the root here as the last one. So root to root. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Cool. Okay, let's go. Then you can also go in the reverse direction. So these are all ascending going up, but we're going to go in the reverse direction, coming from the root down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And 1. And 1. And 1. And 4 more, 1. Yeah, then off of the A flat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And go 4 and 1. Last one. Then off of the F here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And 1. the third, which would be the D. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And 1. And F4, 1. All right, last one. We're gonna go off of the root here. So one more time off the root. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And so go 4 more, 1. Last one, and yeah, sweet. So a lot of this starts with like just running the system itself, but then you can take it steps further. So with the arpeggios, you can play them up and down. So instead of looping each one, 8 times, that's to ingrain just the idea in one place. Then if you play them up and down, and I would do that in time, to make a groove, you know what I mean? Because the time is important. So you're kind of now giving yourself more versatility to be able to move off of any chord tone. That's like maybe next step. But then you do enter into the improvisation realm where it's like, okay, well, if I take that concept, now I can improvise using those concepts. I can go wherever I want within that framework. So there's still parameters, right? You're not totally out in outer space where they cut the cord on you or something like that. So if you do that, this is kind of like later down the line. We're just arpeggiating with B flat 7 arpeggios, and I'm just going to play with the click on 2 and 4 and just using those ideas. So I just used all arpeggios. So that's kind of like next steps. Like after they're all kind of ingrained and you run them up and down, then it's like, okay, well, now what happens if I'm more free with it, but I still have parameters, is just those arpeggios. Then at that point, it turns into phrasing. Like what's my statement and can I repeat myself of what I'm playing? There was an interesting video that I just saw on YouTube from the drummer John Riley. You guys probably don't know. Not the guy from Step Brothers, not John C. Riley. But this John Riley, The Art of Bop Drumming. And he's a pretty renowned drummer. This is a great bebop drum book. And there was a video where he was talking about improvisation, which I found very interesting, which I'm gonna share with you guys, just kind of give you some ideas about how to approach improvisation. And what he was talking about, and this is from a drummer perspective, but it applies to all instruments, is that one of the goals of improvisation is to essentially persuade or convince the listener that you know what you're doing. I thought that was interesting. Kind of makes sense, right? Because you want the listener to be like, oh yeah, that's cool, and he knows what he's doing. There's some meaning, or there's some kind of logic behind what you're playing. So then he said, well, how do you actually convey that there's some kind of logic behind what you're playing? And it's that you have to repeat yourself. Because if you repeat yourself, then the listener can go, oh, okay, here's this theme. There's an idea that's consistent here. And it also, what was interesting that he said about it was that it also is interpreted by the listener that the player intended what they played. Because in order to repeat yourself, you have to purposely do that, right? You have to intend. It's very rare that you're going to be able to repeat yourself randomly. So these are ways that we communicate to, I think, the listener and the other players. Like that what we're doing has some kind of theme. We're trying to convince them that we have some kind of logic, we know what we're doing, and the best way to do that is to repeat yourself. So when you practice, one of the things that I think is really important to try and do is try and repeat your ideas like you're making a melody, as opposed to scales and arpeggios and running them up and down and all that kind of stuff. Those are the source, but you want to try and say, hey, can I repeat myself, and really work at that. It's hard to do because you have to remember what you played, right? So that's one of the hardest things. And I found that interesting, you know. And this is coming from a drummer. They have to repeat themselves too, you know. Every instrument has to repeat themselves to make sense of what they're actually doing.